أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. First of all, my condolences to the Hazara community. You're watching Project Zainab Live. We will be discussing the atrocity that has been carried out. Obviously, we will discuss who we think is behind this attack. But before we start, I want to say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to everybody, and Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. I also want us to pay our condolences through Surah Al-Fatiha for all the deceased, all the martyred people of who are the Hazara community, or members of the Hazara community. So please give us 2 minutes to recite Surah Al-Fatiha and 3 Surah Al-Ula Ahad, please, Surah Al-Ikhlas, for the sake of and for the soul of the departed martyrs of the Hazara community in Balochistan, Quetta. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I want to introduce to you a brother who is very, very well versed in the situation in Quetta and has seen things firsthand. But he's also worked with people, the NGO in the Quetta community, the Hazara community, and has seen and witnessed some of these atrocities. Obviously, we have a whole history of what has happened to the Hazara community, and it's a big shame that it's very difficult that these people can never be brought to justice. And if there is a huge amount of noise that is being created globally, is when steps are actually taken by the government or members of the Balochistan parliamentary senators to actually, step up their game by arresting a couple of people, and then for them it's very easy. They are left back into the community again. The tragedy goes back. The tragedy goes back to decades and decades and decades, and it's very unfortunate that in literally every so often we will have pockets of killings that are so mercilessly affecting the lives of not only the victims but also their families, and it's a massive tragedy. So I ask everybody to try and help the Hazara community as much as you can. You can see from the pictures that they are very distinct in how they look. They do look, they partially belong to tribes from Afghanistan, but also they've lived in Pakistan in a particular community for years and years and decades. But it's always this idea that it's okay to kill members of the Hazara community, and I've witnessed myself over the last few years that steps are not being taken to actually bring these people to justice. You will recall, and I've got like a whole history in front of me right now as we speak, that we can date back to even 2001, when 8 passengers were shot dead and 5 were severely wounded when they were traveling via route from Hazara town to Alamdar Road. And now you'll recall Alamdar Road several times. It pops up, you know, you just have to Google it and you'll see what happens in that. You've got 2003 in June, 12 young Hazara police cadets were killed when 2 assailants opened fire on their vehicle. And this happened on a Sariyab road, which left 9 others injured. Then in 2003, again, this was just literally a month later, 55 people were killed and over 150 were injured in an attack on worshipping during Friday prayers. And this was in Mekongi Road in Quetta. Going back up just a few months later, 6-7 months later, in 2004, in March, another 60 people were killed and more than 100 were critically injured when a religious procession of Shia Muslims was attacked. And this was with extensive open firing, which followed an explosion at Liaquat Bazaar in Quetta. And this was on the 10th of Muharram. Then you had in 2010, and there were, don't forget, between 2004 and 2010, there have been many other incidents, 1 or 2 killings here, 1 or 2 kidnapping there, a few abductions here, a few killing of people there, people on the list. And we can't say it was all just happening with and it can't be said that it was just happening with the Hazara community, but it was happening with Shia professionals. We've lost professors, we've lost doctors, we've lost, you know, so many other people, teachers and people who have been on the list by the LEJ. And you will recall that LEJ is Lakshar-e Jangvi, but then the other associated name that comes along with that is Sipai Saba. And now these have been Wahhabi Takfiri groups that have been allowed to roam across Pakistan, that, you know, have killed people in places like Parachinar. But the most affected group or community that has been affected has to be by far the Hazara community. And this community has also been affected in 2011 when 13 died and 22 were wounded when a suicide bomber blew himself up in the morning of Eid near the Hazara Eidgah. 4 women and 2 children were also among the dead. Now, if we're only going to say that Pakistan has been affected, let's also point fingers at the same group of people, whether it be the Taliban or whether it be any other people who caused this sectarian strife. And this has also occurred in a community of Mazar-e-Sharif in Afghanistan, where villages by villages were affected. Now, I know for a fact that literally going back 4 years ago, this happened in Mazar-e-Sharif. Some of the people that were in the village, including an 8-year-old girl, was beheaded. Every single member of that village was beheaded or found beheaded. So they are not sparing even the young people, the young children. In 2011, in 2013, now, this is where, you know, I was awoken, my conscience was awoken big time to the atrocities have been occurring to the Hazara people and the Hazara community. And this was one of the biggest by far, where 106 people were said to have been killed by bomb blasts, in a market. Everybody going about their business, and later they find that in 2013, and this is, you know, 2013 in June, 33 Hazaras were killed. In 2013 in January, over 73 people were killed and then later found to be the figure went up to 106. And this can all be found on Google. You can all find this. This was happening at Alamdar Road, and people from London and Australia and different parts of United Kingdom and different parts of Australia and different parts of Toronto, Canada, and US, we all went out. We were standing in solidarity with the Hazara community. We stand in solidarity with the Hazara community today, and nothing has changed there. The fact is that there are atrocities being committed and people are not being held accountable. Now, who does this purpose fit? So while we're watching these photos, I'm going to communicate with Brother Anwar, and inshallah I will see you within a minute of you observing these pictures that have occurred in the Hazara community. Anwar Bhai has joined us. Please welcome Brother Anwar Rizvi, who has much more extensive knowledge on the subject of Hazara killings than I do, perhaps. I am aware that Brother Anwar Rizvi has been extremely busy tonight, but we really are honored to have his presence with us. And thank you for coming on the program, Brother Anwar Rizvi. We've just been discussing and showing some pictures of the atrocities that have been caused to the Hazara community. We have read Al-Fatiha in the name of the martyrs that have been martyrs, and we've also stood in speaking about the atrocities that have historically taken place in Quetta, Balochistan over the period of years. But we also mentioned that Mazar-e-Sharif was also targeted by the Taliban, and obviously, there are huge links with the Afghan population and the Hazara community, and that they have a distinctful look, which also separates them from the normal people of Pakistan, which puts them at a very high risk of being of their freedom being taken away from them. We've spoken about Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and Sipahi-Sahaba, the two well-known groups that have never been highly condemned, and if they have been, they've never been held accountable as such. It may have been just to perhaps keep things down and maybe keep everything stum and silent, and perhaps there should be much more being done by the government of Pakistan.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for having me on this show, Sister Rizvi. May I just touch a little bit on the history of this persecution that's been taking place against the Hazara community? The origins of this extreme levels of violence that is taking place against the Hazara people goes back to the days of the rise of the Taliban in Afghanistan. And of course, the Hazara have always been cross-border, so they have been on both sides of the border. The Hazara community in Quetta, obviously well-established Hazara community in Quetta, but a lot of them originate from, of course, they originate from parts of Central Asia, but originate from an area called the province of Bamiyan, which is in Afghanistan. That is really the main base for the Hazara people. The Taliban tried several times to take over Bamiyan, and they were unsuccessful. They then decided to do a kind of a peace treaty with the Hazara people, and they actually put the Quran as a witness to guarantee the treaty. And as soon as the treaty was done, the Taliban very treacherously actually overran Bamiyan when the Hazara defenses were down. And they took over Bamiyan, and there was a huge massacre of the Hazara people in the province of Bamiyan. And of course, a lot of Hazara then fled from Afghanistan into Pakistan, joined the already settled community in Quetta. But the violence has spread over across the border from Afghanistan into Pakistan, and it has continued over many, many years. The death tally so far in Quetta alone has topped over 1,000. And the injured, some of them permanently disabled, goes over 2,000 people. And within a very small community, that is quite a high number, where a lot of families are now without any men. And traditionally, men are the main breadwinners within the Hazara community. So you can see just not only the emotional impact and the physical impact this is having on the community, but the actual economic impact, which is absolutely devastating for that community. So unfortunately, and you referred to some of the extremist groups, pretty much they are one and the same. These groups, these outfits operate under various names, various guises. They officially, they're banned, but really they operate with complete impunity. The authorities every now and again will put somebody away for a few months. It's very cosmetic. There's never any firm action actually taken to actually stop these people from A, spreading this ideology of hate, and B, actually carrying out acts of violence, murderous violence against the Hazara in particular. And you very rightly said that they are the most easily identifiable people because of their very unique Mongol features. They are of a much paler skin than the normal Pakistani population. And they become very easy targets. And they live in a very close community within the city of Quetta. So therefore, of course, that also makes them a much easier target. And the authorities really have done very, very little to protect this community. They have actually failed this community. And we see the tragic consequences of that, of what we're seeing in the last couple of days, where people are sitting on a highway with the dead bodies of the martyrs in absolutely freezing cold weather. It's shocking beyond words, really.
I just wanted to ask you, going back historically, do you think there was a big change that kind of rushed itself in Pakistan with the change of government bringing in Ziaul Haq?
Definitely, I think Zia had a major impact. I mean, if you look at the pre-Zia period of Pakistan, say, if you just take the beginning of the partition, 1947, and leading up to Zia, uh, there have been the odd incidents. I mean, the most famous one, of course, was the massacre of Tiri Mirwa in Khairpur in 1963, which resulted in about 120 or something. I can't remember the exact figure, but it was quite a large number that were massacred in Khairpur. That was in 1963. And, you know, there were occasional one-off, but by and large, I think communities have lived together very peacefully. Zia certainly changed that, and the support for some of these extremely extreme outfits during the so-called Afghan jihad changed the dynamics quite rapidly. And unfortunately, the result of that has been a huge rise in sectarian violence in Pakistan. There are these groups who openly, very openly, preach an ideology that's based entirely upon hate, and nothing is done to stop them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had some of the program from yesterday that you took part in, and I recall a little bit about you being there this Muharram. What did you kind of observe this year out?
Well, yeah, I was there in the lead up to Arbaeen, which is when I witnessed firsthand a lot of the processions that came out. Which, again, you know, if one has to be fair and balanced, it is alleged that it was in reaction to a speech that was made by a Shia speaker in Islamabad. Um, However, what has to be said, again, I'm trying to be as fair and as balanced as I possibly can. The difference between what the Shia speaker is alleged to have said and what I witnessed myself when I was there was this Shia scholar may have said something which may have sounded offensive to people. And I think as Shia, we sometimes have to put our hands up and say that fair enough, you know, those are not things that should be said from a pulpit.
Mm.
At no point did that scholar actually point out to a community and say that those people are not Muslim or they're kafir or anything like that. What I saw and what I heard firsthand was people actually chanting Shia kafir, Shia worthy of death, Shia should be condemned for blasphemy, actually attacking Shia beliefs as blasphemous and calling for the death penalty. Those kind of things were quite shocking to see and hear. And I saw all that firsthand. So, you know, if we are going to be fair and balanced, yes, nobody should condone whatever this Shia speaker is alleged to have said. But equally, it was nothing compared to the levels of hatred which I witnessed on the streets of Karachi.
Yeah. Just extending on that, would you say that over the past few decades, things are considerably getting worse in terms of people living side by side as they were? Or would you say that that's just part and parcel of something that's been happening for many, many decades now?
Well, you know, you could literally look at the history of the past 1400 years, and you know, I don't think we've got all night because I could reel off incident after incident. But unfortunately, we don't have that much time, and I think we really need to stay focused on more recent events. Certainly, things have got progressively worse over the past few decades. I don't think there's any point in pretending otherwise. I mean, so at the grassroots level, I think things are still okay. People still live peacefully side by side by and large. I don't think that has, what I have noticed though, certainly going maybe past 15, 20 years is people moving into particular neighborhoods where they feel safer. That has certainly the big change that I have noticed is that people have now decided that it's probably no longer safe for them to stay in mixed neighborhoods and started moving into neighborhoods where they can be more with, you know, people like them. I don't think that is a very good thing in the long run because that ghettoizes people. It gives people a particular kind of mindset, and I don't think that's healthy. But that's what I have seen happening.
When you mentioned just a few minutes back with regards to economy suffering because the loss of male personalities in Hazara community, what does the future look like for these females who are going to be left by themselves? Because obviously their way of living is that, you know, as you rightfully said, that the man is the breadwinner. You know, are they going to be living in kind of households where just, you know, women are going to have to step out? What are they going to do?
It's you know, I really can't put it any other way. It is actually rather bleak for those women. They're going to find it very, very difficult to step out to try and earn themselves a living, because they'll be very, very easily identified and they'll be very badly discriminated against. The Hazara community in itself does not have the capacity or the economic strength to be able to support these families. So what is really required is state intervention on a pretty massive scale. Whether the state itself is capable of doing that, or indeed has the political will to do something like that, remains to be seen. I also think that now is the time for us as a community to step up to the plate and to find ways of trying to support some of these families, because they are really going to be facing a pretty grim future, if I have to be really honest, because I can't put it any other way.
I remember just literally a few years back when this atrocity occurred, and this was to 86 members of the community that were literally, you know, blindfolded and shot. And then they also, this was actually, sorry, excuse me for my ignorance here. It was actually the bomb blast in the market that took the lives of at least 86 people. But then over a period of time, the numbers increased to 106. We're talking about January 2013. Now, what I can recall right now is that we're in that similar climate in Pakistan right now, where you know, temperatures are falling below -5 degrees Celsius, and the women and the family members are sitting with their coffins and they want justice. At that time, remarkably, because of the pressure that was mounted on Pakistani government at the time, they ended up giving in to the pressure that was mounted on them. Recommendations were kind of met according to you know, the Hazara community and what they had actually put out to the government, which was one, you know, this hatred must be, this killing must be condemned. The second one was to provide expenditure for the burial of the martyrs, and one of them was also to catch the killer and, you know, punish him so that they can get justice. Have we moved any further than that? We're now, what, 7 years later?
Very little, very, very little progress has been made. As far as the killers are concerned, these killers are protected by some very powerful organizations. Some of these organizations, whether officially, unofficially, is difficult for me to say, because I don't have any physical evidence, but the evidence on the ground suggests that these people have some kind of immunity. Even if they're put away for a very short period of time. The courts give them bail. I remember a particular gentleman named of Malik Ishaq, who was subsequently killed in a police encounter. Malik Ishaq went to court, and the judge actually asked him, it was a direct question, that have you been involved in the killing of the Shia? His answer to the judge in a court in front of the judge, he said, of course I have. He said, I must have killed at least 200 Shia, and when I go out from here, I'm going to kill even more. You are not going to believe this. The judge actually granted him bail.
Wow.
The judge granted him bail. He was allowed to continue with his hatred and his killing spree. Eventually, he was killed in a police encounter of some sort. The details of that remain pretty shady. But he was never brought to justice. He was never made to pay for his crimes, for which he openly admitted in court. And this is just one person. The one I don't know if you saw one of my Facebook posts where I mentioned this guy called Ramzan Mengal. He
Yes,
is
yes.
from Balochistan. And this guy, very openly, very publicly preaches hate against the Hazara community, against the Shia community. He walks around with armed bodyguards everywhere. He gets interviewed by the press. He's absolutely free to do what he wants to do. And you sometimes wonder, where is the writ of the state here? At what point does the state need to interfere and say enough is enough? This guy is actually threatening our citizens. Peaceful, law-abiding citizens are being threatened by this man. We need to put him away. What more? I mean, how much more evidence does the state need to prosecute these people?
Yeah. Just looking at the people, and just to describe that they were actually cave miners. Is that correct? And they were at least 11 or 12
they worked
of them.
in very basic, rudimentary conditions. They're pretty harsh, really. So yeah, they literally use their bare hands sometimes to mine coal from these open-faced coal mines. It's pretty hazardous work, pretty dangerous. Doesn't really pay an awful lot, but
I was going to say, but I bet you it just brings in little pennies back into the home.
Frankly, yes. But that was the only way these guys could make a living. And unfortunately, they ended up paying with their lives. So even that little income that was coming in from this really very dirty, unsafe, hazardous work is now gone.
That's very, very sad.
Yeah.
And there was somebody put up a post with regards to one of the young lads, and he'd actually topped full marks in relation to his studies, and he was the third out of the whole of Balochistan for getting those actually marks in his studies. So that really is heartbreaking to see that, even like any form of celebration that was going to be taken up by the family for him reaching those that grade, that it's left them with nothing, literally.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just one of the many, many heartbreaking stories that have emerged out of this community. Yes, this young man who would have had an otherwise great future in front of him, and his life got taken away. Not only his life got taken away, which is a huge tragedy in itself, but the fact is that now his family has got absolutely no one to take care of them. It's really sad beyond any words that I can express right
One
now.
of the sisters had actually written, the sister's name is Masuma, and she actually wrote that we have lost family, male family members. So many of our family members have been taken away from us that we are actually left with no men to lift up the janazeh, or the bodies of these deceased martyrs, and that's very painful.
Very painful. It is actually.
I have a notice written by somebody who's an 86-year-old man, and he says that I was born and brought up in Quetta. I'm about 86 years of age. The road and area from Quetta to Mash, which is MACH, is about 50 kilometers. And he says that this area is totally mountainous, and most of the coal mines are here. The local population is about 95% Baloch and Baravis, which speak Brohi. But nobody who commits a crime can actually escape without the local residents knowing about it.
Yeah.
I have been a frequent visitor to this terrain, being a doctor who could speak the local language. Nobody can escape or get away without local population knowing about it. Not a single arrest has been made during the last 15 years, where several incidents have occurred. And he's put up a big why. Why is that the case, that nobody gets arrested? And I can't believe that, these are very kind of confined areas where people kind of know each other a lot, but then there has to be somebody who's giving away who is giving access to these people for a sum of money, perhaps, or, or being promised some goods in relation to carrying out this work.
Absolutely. see, a lot of these communities are actually very poor. And also, what a lot of these extremist outfits have done, and this is a pattern, and this is something which has also happened in the area of Gilgit-Baltistan, where also a lot of atrocities have taken place.
Yeah.
The extremist outfits have actually populated some of these areas with people who sympathize with them, or they are on their payroll. They have established their madrasas, etc., etc. So they are actually, they know that some of these communities, they're just so poor that all they need is just something for sustenance, and we will get their sympathies. Also, they say, look, we'll provide free education to your children. They will come into our madrasa. They will get free food, etc., etc. And so their loyalties are kind of bought off. And also, they live under, they themselves live under threat. They know that if they speak up or if they see anything, that these people are quite capable of doing to these people what they do to the Hazaras. So there's fear. There's that kind of, grip on these people, which mostly emanates from fear and from power, the power that these people have over these communities. It's actually a pattern that's been repeated in many different parts of Pakistan. So I would say that, yes, that pretty much matches with what is happening in various other parts of Pakistan as well.
Exactly. Where do you see, or what do you see happening in the next few days? Given the fact that before we had global pressure being piled up, and we were all sitting outside embassies and holding the government potentially responsible for not taking their steps to condemn these groups. What's going to happen now? Because obviously here we've got lockdown. There's no kind of way to go out. So, I mean, I know we're using this platform on Zoom and YouTube. What else is there that we can actually do to help the Hazara community?
Well, as far as we are concerned, us here in the UK at least, we have to continue doing what we're doing, which is, you're doing some amazing work, sister, yourself. I try and use whatever medium is available to me to try and raise as much voice as I possibly can. We really have to continue doing this. There's no, we must not be silenced. And I think you yourself have been through a few incidents lately. Well, they have tried to silence you, but you have refused to be silenced. And I think that is wonderful. That is an absolutely amazing example of people refusing to be silenced. Where you see oppression, you must raise your voice in whatever way you can. In my student days, and much later than my student days, I participated in anti-apartheid marches in London. And in those days, and I, for all that, I twice spent a couple of nights in Paddington Green Police Station for all my troubles. But the fact of the matter was that we refused to be silenced. And people in those days used to tell us, why are you doing all this? This is not good for your career. This is not good. But no. And what happened? We saw this huge change in South Africa eventually, where apartheid had to go. And if everybody just said, well, what's the point of saying it? What's the point of doing anything? What's the point of putting stuff out on social media? No, you cannot stop speaking up. You can't do that, because the moment you do that, you're allowing the oppressor to continue with what they're doing. The more they hear this noise, the less likely it is that they will do something like this anytime soon, because they will know that there are people watching and raising their voices and putting pressure on the government to try and do something about it. So we have to continue. Within Pakistan, what's going to happen? Well, ultimately, the safety, the security of citizens lies with the buck stops with the state. The state has to really provide guarantees to this community, which has been under threat of violence for a very, very long time, have paid with their lives. The state has to actually provide them with the security that this community
needs. In 2013, Imran Khan said, what is the state? So can we just tell him exactly what the state is now? Because he seems to be kind of ignorant to exactly what the state was around that time. Now, 7 years on, while you're a prime minister, Imran Khan, you have a duty to condemn these killings. You have a duty to arrest these perpetrators or go after these perpetrators and provide justice for these people.
Yeah. So what did Imran Khan say? What is the state?
Yeah. He was
Okay,
left,
right.
I have a text message of 2013 on 11th of January, which he says, tragic news from Quetta, condemned Lashkar-e-Jhangvi for its genocidal campaign against Shias, particularly Hazaras. And then he writes, where is the state?
Oh, where is the state? Sorry,
Where
that's
is
what
the
you said.
state? Sorry,
Where
not
is
what
the
is the
state?
state?
Where is the state? Yeah, where is the state? Exactly. Let's put this question to Mr. Khan. Where is the state? Where are you? You've been sitting in Islamabad tweeting for the past 3 days.
Yeah.
You should have been on the first plane to Quetta with that community, telling them that,
Consoling
look,
the families.
I am your prime
Exactly.
minister, and I am going to be here with you to make sure, first of all, to make sure that these people get themselves a dignified burial for which the state is going to pay for, not the families. And I want to put together a comprehensive package that is firstly going to ensure that those families that have lost their breadwinning members should be adequately compensated financially, and then to put in place measures that will provide security for this. This is what Imran Khan should have done 2 days ago. Yeah. Instead, he sits in the Prime Minister House in Islamabad, which he promised to turn into a university, by the way. Wow. Another one of his promises that he has not fulfilled. And he's sitting there sending tweets. I mean, he reminds me of Donald Trump. Donald Trump basically runs his presidency through the Twitter account.
Yeah, you'd think that it was a form of self-admiring tactics using using Twitter, but surely we have a duty as Muslims, or even those who are not non-Muslims or believers, to condemn such atrocities.
Absolutely.
Not happening just with the Hazara community, but elsewhere. So, indeed, we must support these people. We are telling the Hazara community that we stand in solidarity with you, and we will continue all our efforts to make sure that there is some form of justice received by yourselves, but not only justice, but that we can accommodate you in some way that will actually make your lives a little bit more comfortable from where you are right now. Obviously, these people, these perpetrators, will be back for more, because this is what they've been doing. I just before you came on, brother Anwar, I was reading that the last decade hasn't stopped them. It's been 6 months here, and then 6 months again, and 3 months again, and then if it's not 23 people, it's 33 people, then it's 83 people, and it's just been a continuous wave of violence against the Hazara community. I'm sure that these people must be thinking, where does it stop for them? And it seems that nobody's giving those kind of assurances.
No, absolutely not. They go there, they make these mealy-mouthed promises, we'll do this, we'll do that. Nothing actually happens. And really now is the time for this, for people to say, look, enough is enough. We really cannot just live on your empty promises anymore. And for the state now, where is the state? Exactly, good question. So the state now needs to really step up to the plate. No point sending your ministers who go there and frankly,
empty promises on their part.
Yeah, no. You go there, you tell these people what you plan to do for them. You, as Prime Minister of the country, who came on the promise of change, you've changed nothing. You've actually dragged the country. The country has actually regressed under this man.
Absolutely, absolutely.
He really needs to show leadership here. He has failed as a leader.
Okay, we've kind of come very close to the end of the program now, but I just want to say thank you very much, Brother Anwar Rizvi, for letting us have your presence on Project Zainab Live. And we go out every Tuesday, bringing communities together through the work by highlighting a lot of the work that is happening. Inshallah, no doubt, at one point. In close time, you will actually share some of the work that you're also doing for the community. And none of us want accolades for the work that we do. But what we do is it gives us, it's kind of some form of ibrat, it's some form of an awareness that there is good work that's happening in the communities, how to get behind these kind of projects. But also, Project Zainab Live goes out every Tuesday talking about how to kind of improve your family lives through matters that are affecting you. We have coming up next Tuesday, we have a brother from Nigeria who's also a member of the IMN, supporter of Sheikh Zakzaki, but also he's He's got his own campaign running for very, very vulnerable people in Nigeria. So we will have Brother Shoaib Ahmed next week, live from Nigeria. Next, we have Sheikh Hamza Sodagar to talk about akhlaq in the Quran. And inshallah, that will continue, family akhlaq in the Quran. That will continue at 10 o'clock via Project Zainab Live. I just want to say thank you very much, Brother Anwar Rizvi, for being with us today, and look forward to seeing you and talking about some of the hard work you're also doing in the community.
Well, I would like to say that it's been a pleasure, but unfortunately it's not. It's actually been very painful. But thank you very much for inviting me. And inshallah, we hope to touch base again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Best of luck with the good work that you're doing. It's amazing, mashallah.
Assalamu alaikum to the community watching Project Zainab Live. We will be back shortly.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How are you? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I just said that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. Well, your last video was just literally life-changing. I just wanted to say that. It was unbelievable. Like, that hadith that you shared, it changes everything. It really just changes everything. And I'm going to share it. I already shared it with my family. I'm going to share it with as many people as I can, especially for married couples. It's really game-changing.
Yeah. I wish I had seen it earlier myself.
Yeah, I can't thank you. I'm actually, inshallah, in the process of getting married soon. So,
Inshallah.
The best thing I could have read. Literally the best thing I could have read.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Listen to. So, thank you so much. Your lecture series is phenomenal, and it's something that, as the title states, family akhlaq in the Quran. It's what we desperately need. I know, like, because of the relative newness of Project Zainab, we aren't able to reach as many people, but inshallah, I really think that it's gonna start reaching so many people, and it's gonna change lives. Like, it already is slowly, but it's gonna change a lot of lives, inshallah.
Inshallah, hopefully.
All right, thank you so much. I'm gonna go back off and wait for sister, and then once we can start, inshallah.
Inshallah, I'll be waiting too.